I won't be playing that piece. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. Every head in Monroe Academy's grand recital hall snapped toward the small figure at the piano. Emma Martinez stood there, 16 years old scholarship student, wearing a thrift store dress that screamed poverty to everyone who mattered. Behind her, Mrs. Ashford's face went white, then red. Before we dive into this incredible story, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Stay with me until the very end. You won't believe what happens. And comment below with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. The gasps started immediately. What did she just say? Someone whispered from the third row, loud enough for half the auditorium to hear. Emma's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the piano bench, but she kept her chin up. She'd practiced this moment in her head 1,000 times. The announcement, the defiance. What came after terrified her, but backing down now wasn't an option. Miss Martinez, Mrs. Ashford's voice cut through the murmurs like a knife through butter. Sharp, controlled, deadly. We discussed this. You will play for Elise, the piece I assigned you. Emma turned to face her teacher, and for just a second she saw something flicker in Mrs. Ashford's eyes. Not anger, fear. Fear that a scholarship kid might embarrass the academy in front of all these wealthy families who paid $50,000 a year in tuition. No, ma'am, Emma said quietly. I won't. The auditorium erupted. The nerve. Does she know who's in this audience? Someone needs to remove her. In the back row, Victor Martinez felt his chest tighten. His leather vest suddenly felt too hot, too obvious. Around him, the other members of his motorcycle club sat perfectly still, but he could feel their tension. They'd come here for Emma. They'd put on their cleanest clothes, left their bikes parked 3 blocks away, so they wouldn't disturb the atmosphere, as the academy's email had politely suggested. They'd endured the stares, the whispered comments, the way parents pulled their children a little closer when they walked past. All for Emma, Victor's granddaughter, his whole world. Victor, Snake whispered beside him. You want us to No. Victor's voice was barely audible. Let her handle it. On stage, Mrs. Ashford had climbed the stairs, her heels clicking against the wood like gunshots. She reached for Emma's arm. Miss Martinez, this is completely unacceptable. You will play the assigned piece or you will leave this stage immediately. Emma pulled her arm back. Not aggressively, just enough to free herself. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, Mrs. Ashford, but I'm not playing for Elise. That's a beginner's piece, a voice called from the audience. Male, entitled. Why would they give her a beginner's piece? Because that's all she can handle, someone else answered. A woman this time. She's only been here 6 months. She doesn't have the foundation these other students have. She doesn't have the background, another added. Emma felt each word like a physical blow, but she'd expected them. She'd heard variations of these comments every single day since she'd arrived at Monroe Academy on a full scholarship pulled from her public school because someone had heard her play at a community center fundraiser. 6 months of being the poor kid. 6 months of borrowed textbooks and free lunch tickets. 6 months of watching her classmates get dropped off in Mercedes and BMWs while she took 2 buses and walked half a mile. 6 months of Mrs. Ashford's tight smiles and lowered expectations. Emma, Mrs. Ashford's voice dropped to a whisper meant only for her. Don't do this. Don't embarrass yourself. These people, they're expecting a nice, simple performance. Something sweet. Something appropriate for someone of your background. Someone of my background. Emma repeated the words slowly, letting them sit in the air between them. Mrs. Ashford's face flushed. You know what I mean. You haven't had private lessons since you were 3. You don't have a Steinway grand in your living room. Your grandfather... She stopped herself, but the damage was done. My grandfather, what? Emma, please. Say it. Emma's voice was louder now, carrying past the stage. My grandfather, what, Mrs. Ashford? The teacher's lips pressed into a thin line. She glanced toward the back of the auditorium where Victor sat in his Hells Angels vest, and Emma saw exactly what Mrs. Ashford thought, but would never say out loud. Your grandfather is a biker, a criminal probably, certainly not someone who belongs in our world. I'm going to play Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2, Emma announced loud enough for everyone to hear. By Franz Liszt. The silence that followed was absolute. Then the laughter started. Not from everyone, but from enough people that Emma's face burned. Polite laughter mostly, the kind that happened behind raised programs and manicured hands, but laughter nonetheless. That's a joke, right? A boy's voice from the front row. Probably Cameron Westbrook, whose mother sat on the Academy's board. That piece is like professional level. It's one of the most technically difficult piano compositions ever written. A woman explained to someone beside her, not bothering to lower her voice. Even our best students struggle with it. Why would she even attempt? Attention, perhaps. Poor thing probably doesn't understand how outclassed she is. Mrs. Ashford leaned closer. Emma, this isn't funny anymore. Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 requires years of advanced training. You've been here 6 months. You're a good student, but this is beyond. I've been training for 10 years, Emma interrupted, in a public school program with my grandfather. Mrs. Ashford blinked. Your grandfather. Yes, ma'am. Your grandfather who, Mrs. Ashford glanced again toward Victor. Your grandfather, the motorcycle enthusiast. Emma almost smiled at the euphemism. Yes, ma'am, that grandfather. I see. Mrs. Ashford's tone made it clear she didn't see at all. Emma, I appreciate that your family has been supportive of your interests, but teaching yourself from YouTube videos or playing around at home isn't the same as formal training. This piece will expose every gap in your technique, every weakness. These people, she gestured toward the audience, they'll hear it immediately. They'll know you're in over your head. Is that really how you want to be remembered? I want to be remembered for telling the truth, Emma said. The truth that you gave me for release because you didn't think I was good enough for anything else. That you've been treating me like a charity case since the day I arrived. That you put me in remedial music theory even though I tested into advanced. That you told me I should adjust my expectations about actually performing in the winter concert because the parents expect a certain caliber of student on that stage. Mrs. Ashford's face had gone from flushed to pale. Emma, I never said. You said all of it, Mrs. Ashford. Maybe not in those exact words, but you said it. This is completely inappropriate. You know what's inappropriate? Emma's voice cracked, but she pushed through. Putting me last in the program, after the elementary school kids, after the girl who forgot half her piece last month, dead last, because you were hoping nobody would still be here by the time I played, because you're embarrassed of me. That is not, it is. Emma felt tears threatening, but she blinked them back. And I'm done being embarrassed of myself just because you are. The auditorium had gone completely silent. Every eye was on the stage. Even the parents who'd been whispering earlier had stopped, programs frozen halfway to their faces. In the back row, Victor's hands were clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. Snake touched his shoulder. Brother, Snake said quietly, she's got this. Victor nodded, not trusting his voice. On stage, Director Morrison had appeared from the wings. He was a tall man with silver hair and an expression that probably intimidated wealthy parents into writing bigger donation checks. He definitely intimidated Emma. She'd met him exactly once at orientation, and he'd shaken her hand while looking at something over her shoulder. Miss Martinez, his voice boomed across the auditorium. Mrs. Ashford informs me there's been some confusion about tonight's program. No confusion, sir. Emma's voice sounded small compared to his. I'm just not playing the piece Mrs. Ashford assigned. I see. Morrison descended the stairs and walked toward the piano, each step deliberate. And why is that? Because I can play better than that, sir. Someone in the audience laughed. A sharp, ugly sound. Morrison held up his hand and the laughter stopped immediately. He studied Emma for a long moment. You understand, he said finally, that Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 is not a piece we typically assign to first-year scholarship students. There it was. Scholarship, the word that defined her to everyone here. Yes, sir. It's a piece that requires exceptional technical skill, years of intensive training, and a level of musical maturity that most high school students simply haven't developed yet. Yes, sir. If you fail, if you can't execute this piece at the level it demands, you will embarrass yourself, this academy, and everyone who believed in you enough to offer you that scholarship. Emma swallowed hard. Yes, sir. Knowing all that, Morrison paused. You still want to attempt this? Yes, sir, but not attempt. I'm going to play it. Another ripple of whispers. Morrison's eyebrow raised slightly, confident. Prepared, sir. Morrison looked at Mrs. Ashford, who shook her head almost imperceptibly. Then he looked out at the audience, specifically towards a section near the front, where the wealthiest donors sat. Emma could see the calculation in his eyes. This could go very wrong for the Academy if she failed. Sir, Emma said quietly, if I can't play it, I'll withdraw from Monroe, voluntarily. No fuss. You'll never hear from me again. Emma, no, Mrs. Ashford started. But if I can play it, Emma continued louder now, then maybe everyone here will stop assuming they know what I can or can't do based on where I come from. Morrison studied her for another long moment. Then surprisingly, he stepped back. Very well, Miss Martinez. The stage is yours. The applause that followed was scattered and uncomfortable. Most people weren't clapping at all. They were waiting, judging, already composing the story they'd tell at dinner parties. Did you hear about that scholarship girl who thought she could play Liszt? Emma walked to the piano, her thrift store shoes silent on the stage floor. Up close, the Steinway Grand looked like something from another world. Glossy black. Perfect. She'd practiced on an electric keyboard at home. The keys waited, but not quite right. The sound coming through cheap speakers that Victor had bought at a garage sale. This was different. This was everything. She sat down and adjusted the bench. Her hands were shaking so badly, she had to press them against her thighs for a moment. In the wings, she could see Mrs. Ashford watching with her arms crossed, waiting for failure. Emma looked out at the audience, rows and rows of faces, most hostile, some curious, a few sympathetic, and in the very back, barely visible in the shadows, her grandfather, Victor, sitting perfectly still, surrounded by his brothers from the club, all of them watching her with absolute faith. She thought about the first time Victor had sat her down at a piano. She'd been 6 years old, crying because kids at school had made fun of her clothes. He'd taken her to the community center, to the old upright piano in the corner that nobody used, and he'd played for her. Actually played, not just noodled around. He'd played Chopin, his scarred fingers moving across the keys like they'd been born there. And the music had been so beautiful that Emma had stopped crying and just listened. Music don't care where you come from, he told her afterward. It don't care what you wear or what you got in the bank. It only cares what's in here. He tapped her chest. You got something in there, little Emma. Something special. Don't ever let nobody tell you different. She'd been learning from him ever since. In secret, mostly. Victor didn't advertise his past. Didn't talk about the conservatory scholarship he'd turned down at 18 to take care of his dying mother. Didn't mention the 15 years he'd spent playing in dive bars and honky-tonks before giving it up entirely when his hands got too scarred from mechanic work to play the way he used to. But he'd never stopped teaching Emma. 10 years of lessons, of theory, of technique, of him sitting beside her on that community center bench, demonstrating passages until his hands cramped, then making her practice them 100 times until they were perfect. When you play, he'd said just last week, don't think about the notes. Don't think about the people watching. Just think about the story you're telling. Make them feel something. That's all that matters. Emma placed her hands on the keys. The cool ivory felt like coming home. She took one deep breath, then another. Behind her, someone coughed impatiently. Miss Martinez, Morrison prompted. Whenever you're ready. Emma closed her eyes for just a second. Then her fingers came down on the opening chord. The first notes of Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 exploded into the auditorium like thunder. The audience jerked in their seats. This wasn't the tentative, careful playing they'd expected from a scholarship student. This was confident, powerful. The opening Lasan section rolled out with a darkness and depth that seemed impossible from someone so young. Emma's fingers moved across the keys with absolute certainty. She'd played this piece so many times that it lived in her muscle memory, in her bones. Every trill, every run, every impossible jump between octaves, she knew them all intimately. But more than that, she felt them. The longing in the opening passages, the building tension as the piece developed, the way Liszt had taken Hungarian folk melodies and transformed them into something transcendent. She poured everything into it. Every insult she'd endured at Monroe, every time someone had looked at her thrift store clothes and made assumptions. Every moment Mrs. Ashford had treated her like she was less than the other students. Every single day she'd felt like she didn't belong. The music swelled, grew, became something beyond just notes on a page. In the audience, mouths had fallen open. She's actually playing it, someone whispered. Not just playing it. Listen to that technique. Impossible. Mrs. Ashford stood in the wings, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Not sad tears, shocked ones, ashamed ones. Director Morrison had taken a seat in the front row, leaning forward, his expression transformed from skepticism to something like awe. But Emma wasn't playing for them. She was playing for Victor. For every hour he'd spent teaching her, even when his hands hurt so badly he could barely hold a wrench the next day at the shop. For every time he'd believed in her when nobody else did. For every sacrifice he'd made so she could have lessons and music books and a chance at something better. The piece built toward the Frisca section, the fast, wild conclusion that separated amateur pianists from professionals. Emma's hands flew across the keys, executing runs that should have been beyond her age and experience. Her fingers moved so fast they blurred, hitting every note with crystalline precision. The audience wasn't just watching anymore. They were experiencing something they hadn't expected, something that challenged every assumption they'd walked in with. This wasn't a scholarship student in over her head. This was an artist. The final crescendo approached. Emma's whole body moved with the music now swaying, feeling every chord in her chest. The Steinway responded to her touch like it had been waiting for her, specifically, its tone rich and full and perfect. And then with a final cascade of notes that rang through the auditorium like church bells, it was over. Emma's hands hovered above the keys for just a moment. Then she lowered them to her lap. The silence stretched. 1 second, 2, 5. Emma's heart hammered. Had she made a mistake? Had she? The applause started from the back row. Victor was on his feet, and so were all his brothers. Snake, Razor, Tommy, 2 times, 8 men in leather vests standing and clapping like their lives depended on it. Then someone in the middle section stood. Then another. Then a whole row. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was on his feet. The applause crashed over Emma like a wave. Not polite, not obligatory, real, thunderous. People were shouting, "Brava! Incredible! Did you see?" Emma stood slowly, her legs shaking so badly she had to grip the piano for support. She turned toward the audience, and the applause somehow got louder. Mrs. Ashford appeared at her side, and for a terrible moment Emma thought she was going to be reprimanded. But instead, her teacher grabbed both her hands. "Emma," Mrs. Ashford said, her voice breaking, "I am so sorry. I never. It's okay. It's not okay." Mrs. Ashford was openly crying now. "I judged you. From day one I looked at you and your grandfather and I made assumptions. Horrible assumptions. And I almost—" She stopped, unable to continue. Emma squeezed her hands. "I had to prove myself anyway, Mrs. Ashford. You just gave me a reason to do it publicly." Morrison had joined them on stage. He wasn't smiling, but his eyes were different than before. Respectful. "Miss Martinez," he said, "I owe you an apology as well. We all do." The applause was finally dying down, but people weren't sitting. They were pressing toward the stage, wanting to talk to her, to understand what they just witnessed. "Where did you train?" a woman called out. "Which conservatory?" "Who's your private teacher?" another asked. Emma looked past them all to the back of the auditorium where Victor still stood. Even from this distance, she could see the tears on his face. He raised one hand just slightly, a small wave, pride radiating from every line of his body. "My grandfather taught me," Emma said clearly. "Victor Martinez. He's been my only teacher." The audience turned to look at Victor, at the scarred man in the leather vest standing among other men in leather vests in the last row, because that's where people like them were expected to sit. "Your grandfather," Morrison repeated slowly. "The gentleman in the back." "Yes, sir." "I'd like to meet him, if that's all right." Emma nodded, her throat too tight to speak. Morrison descended from the stage and walked up the center aisle. The crowd parted for him. When he reached Victor, he extended his hand. "Mr. Martinez," Morrison said formally, "I believe we need to have a conversation about your teaching methods. I've never, in 30 years at this academy, I've never heard a first-year student play at that level." Victor shook his hand, but his eyes were wary. "Emma's special." "Clearly. But that kind of instruction doesn't happen by accident." "Where did you study?" "Long time ago. Doesn't matter now." "I think it matters very much," Morrison said. "Would you consider no?" Victor's voice was firm but not rude. "I don't do that anymore. I just teach Emma." Morrison nodded slowly. I understand, but perhaps we could discuss her program going forward. I think we've been underselling her abilities. You think, Snake muttered beside Victor. Morrison's gaze shifted to the other bikers, and Emma saw him reassessing again. These weren't thugs. They were men who'd shown up to support a kid they cared about, who'd endured judgment and stares because family mattered more than comfort. Gentlemen, Morrison said to them, thank you for coming tonight. I hope we'll see you at future performances. We'll be here, Tommy two times said, every damn time. On stage, Emma watched the interaction with her heart in her throat. Part of her wanted to run down there and stand between Victor and Morrison, protecting her grandfather from more judgment. But Victor didn't need protecting. He stood tall, meeting Morrison's eyes, refusing to be diminished. Mrs. Ashford touched Emma's arm. You should know, she said quietly. After tonight, everything changes. The advanced program, private tutoring, college preparatory track. Whatever you need, whatever you want. I just want to play, Emma said. Then play you shall. Mrs. Ashford wiped her eyes. Emma, I have to ask. Why didn't you tell me about your training, about your grandfather's background? Emma looked at her steadily. Would you have believed me? Mrs. Ashford opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. They both knew the truth. The crowd was finally dispersing, parents collecting their children, but many lingered near the stage. Emma could hear them talking, their voices carrying. Completely underestimated her. That scholarship program might actually be worth supporting. Who knew there was that level of talent in? Emma tried not to listen. These were the same people who'd been ready to laugh at her 15 minutes ago. Their approval felt hollow. What mattered was Victor. What mattered was that she'd done what she set out to do. She'd proven that scholarship students could be just as talented as kids who had had private teachers since birth. That poor kids could work just as hard, reach just as high. That being different didn't mean being less. Cameron Westbrook appeared at the edge of the stage. He was in her music theory class, always sitting in front with the other legacy students making jokes Emma never quite understood because they referenced vacation homes and ski trips and summer programs she'd never attend. Hey, he said awkwardly. That was really good. Emma nodded, not sure how to respond. I'm sorry, he added. For, laughing earlier, that was messed up. It's fine. It's not fine. We assumed he trailed off, embarrassed. Anyway, that was incredible, like actually incredible. Thanks, he hesitated. Your grandfather really taught you all that? Yeah. Wow. Cameron shook his head. My parents have paid like $100,000 in piano lessons for me over the years, and I can barely get through intermediate pieces. You're the real thing. Emma softened slightly. You're pretty good too. I heard you play last month. I'm technically proficient, Cameron corrected. You're an artist. There's a difference. He glanced toward the back where Victor stood talking with Morrison. Your grandfather must be amazing. He is. Cool. Well, see you Monday. Cameron gave her a small smile and headed off. Emma watched him go, feeling something shift inside her. Maybe not everyone here was an enemy. Maybe some of them just needed their assumptions challenged. Victor finally made his way to the stage, Morrison trailing behind him, along with several board members. Emma rushed to the edge, and Victor caught her in a fierce hug. Proud of you, little Emma, he said into her hair. So damn proud. I did good. He pulled back to look at her, his weathered face creased with emotion. You did perfect. Better than perfect. You played it exactly like I taught you. With heart. Mr. Martinez, one of the board members interrupted. We were hoping you might consider. No, Victor said again, not looking away from Emma. I told your director. I don't teach. Not professionally. Emma's my granddaughter. That's different. But surely. He said no, Snake interrupted, having followed Victor to the stage. Man's got a right to say no. The board member blinked clearly, unused to being contradicted. Morrison stepped in smoothly. Of course, we respect that, but we would like to ensure Emma gets every resource she needs. Perhaps we could discuss some adjustments to her schedule, advanced placement in all her music classes, access to practice rooms whenever she needs them. That'd be good, Victor said carefully. Long as you're doing it because Emma earned it, not because you feel guilty for treating her like she didn't belong. Direct hit. Morrison actually flinched. Fair enough, he said after a moment. And you're right. We've made mistakes in how we've handled Emma's placement. We'll do better. See that you do. The board members drifted away, whispering among themselves. Emma could imagine the conversations they'd have later. The reassessment of their scholarship program. The questions about how they'd missed such obvious talent. Good, let them question. Mrs. Ashford approached more hesitantly. Mr. Martinez, I owe you an apology as well. I should have taken the time to understand Emma's training. I should have trusted her when she said she was ready for more challenging material. Victor studied her for a long moment. You know what I think, Mrs. Ashford? What? I think you're a good teacher who got caught up in a system that values money over talent. Emma tells me you're great with the kids who need help. Real patient. Kind. You just forgot that poor kids can be great too. Not just good, great. Mrs. Ashford nodded, more tears falling. You're right, and I'm sorry to both of you. Apology accepted, Victor said. Now how about we get out of here? I'm starving, and I promised Emma we'd celebrate no matter what happened. Pizza, Emma asked hopefully. Pizza and ice cream. Whatever you want, kiddo. They started toward the exit, the Hells Angels forming a protective circle around them. As they walked up the aisle, Emma noticed people were watching Victor differently now. Not with fear or judgment, but with curiosity, respect even. Near the door, an elderly woman stopped them. She was wearing diamonds and a fur stole, clearly one of the Academy's major donors. Excuse me, she said to Victor. I couldn't help but overhear that you taught your granddaughter. Yes, ma'am. Where did you study, if you don't mind my asking? Victor hesitated, then sighed. Juilliard, 50 years ago, didn't finish. The woman's eyes widened. Juilliard, but why? Life happened, ma'am. Had to make different choices. He touched Emma's shoulder. But I got something better out of it. Got to teach this one everything I know. Remarkable, the woman murmured. Simply remarkable. They finally made it outside into the cool evening air. Emma took a deep breath, feeling like she could breathe properly for the first time in hours. You okay? Victor asked. Yeah, just that was intense. You handled it like a pro. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Your grandmother would have been so proud. She always said you had magic in your fingers. Emma leaned against him. I wish she could have heard me play tonight. She did, kiddo. Somehow she did. They walked toward the parking lot where the motorcycles waited, chrome gleaming under the streetlights. Emma could hear music from inside the academy, the reception portion of the evening starting up. She'd been expected to stay to mingle, but none of that mattered now. She'd said what she needed to say. With music instead of words. And the whole world had listened. The pizza place Victor chose was nothing like the restaurants near Monroe Academy. No white tablecloths, no wine lists thicker than textbooks, just red vinyl booths, checkered floors, and the smell of garlic bread that hit you the moment you walked through the door. Emma had never been so grateful for ordinary in her life. 2 large pepperonis, one with extra cheese, Victor told the waitress, and whatever ice cream sundaes you got for dessert. Coming right up, hon. The waitress, her name tag said. Brenda smiled at Emma. You celebrating something, sweetie? You're all dressed up. She just played piano in front of 300 rich people who thought she'd fall on her face, Snake said from across the booth. And she made 'em all eat their words. Brenda's smile widened. Well, good for you, honey. I'll make sure those sundaes are extra big. As she walked away, Emma felt something in her chest unclench. Here nobody cared about scholarships or pedigree. Nobody was judging her shoes or wondering if she belonged. You gonna eat or just stare at the table all night? Tommy 2 times asked, sliding into the booth beside Snake. Emma looked up. I'm still processing. Process faster. Pizza's coming and these animals don't wait for nobody. Tommy grinned, but his eyes were serious. You did good tonight, kid. Real good. She did better than good, Razor added. He was the quietest of Victor's brothers, spoke maybe 10 words a week, so when he talked, people listened. She made grown men cry. Saw at least 3. 4, Snake corrected. I counted. Emma felt her face heat. Stop. No, they're right. Victor squeezed her shoulder. You didn't just play music tonight, Emma. You changed minds. That's powerful stuff. The pizza arrived, steam rising off the cheese, and for a few minutes, everyone just ate. Emma hadn't realized how hungry she was until the first bite hit her tongue. She'd been too nervous to eat before the recital, her stomach twisted in knots. So what happens now? Tommy asked, sauce on his chin. They're going to treat you different at that fancy school. Morrison said they'd moved me to advanced classes. Emma picked at her crust. Mrs. Ashford apologized, like really apologized. She was crying. Good, Snake said. She should cry. What she did to you was messed up. She's not a bad person, Emma said quietly. She just assumed things. Yeah, well, assumptions almost cost you everything tonight. Victor's voice was gentle but firm. You remember that when you're dealing with those people. They'll smile at you now, treat you like you're special, but the second you slip, the second you're not perfect, they'll remember where you came from. That's dark, Vic, Tommy said. That's reality. Victor took a long drink of his beer. Emma needs to know what she's up against. Tonight was a victory, but the war's not over. Those families that bored Morrison himself, they're not going to suddenly forget their prejudices. They'll just hide them better. Emma's stomach tightened again. So nothing changes. No, everything changes, but not the way you think. Victor leaned forward. See, before tonight, they could ignore you, write you off as some charity case who got lucky. But now you're undeniable. You're a threat to their whole worldview, and threatened people get dangerous. Jesus, Vic, Snake muttered. Let the kid enjoy her pizza. I'm serious. Victor looked at Emma. You're going to face stuff at that school that'll make tonight look easy. Sabotage, jealousy, kids who will try to befriend you just to tear you down later. You need to be ready. How do I get ready for that? By remembering who you are, where you come from, and never ever apologizing for it. Emma nodded slowly, but her mind was already spinning ahead. Monday morning, walking back into Monroe Academy, facing all those kids who'd watched her defy Mrs. Ashford. Some would respect her. Others would resent her. She had no idea which would be worse. Hey, Victor's hand covered hers. One day at a time, little Emma. You don't have to figure it all out tonight. The door chimed, and Emma glanced up automatically. Her breath caught. Mrs. Ashford stood in the doorway, still in her recital clothes, looking completely out of place among the families and couples scattered throughout the restaurant. Her eyes scanned the room until they landed on Emma's booth. Oh, hell, Snake said. She followed us. Victor's jaw tightened. Easy. Mrs. Ashford approached slowly like she was walking toward a cliff edge. When she reached their table, she clasped her hands together. Emma, Mr. Martinez, I'm so sorry to intrude on your evening, but I needed to speak with you. Both of you. We're eating, Snake said flatly. I understand this will only take a moment. Mrs. Ashford's voice trembled slightly. Mr. Martinez, I spoke with Director Morrison after you left. We'd like to extend an invitation. Not interested, Victor said. Please, just hear me out. Mrs. Ashford pulled a chair from a nearby table and sat down without being invited. We want to offer Emma a full scholarship extension through graduation. Not just tuition, books, supplies, private lessons with our best instructors, summer programs, everything. Emma's fork clattered against her plate. What? You've earned it. Tonight proved that beyond any doubt. Mrs. Ashford turned to Victor. And we'd like to hire you as a consultant for our scholarship program. Help us identify and nurture talent that might otherwise be overlooked. Students like Emma, who have incredible potential, but lack the resources or connections to know. Victor's voice was ice. Mrs. Ashford blinked. No. I told Morrison, I'm telling you, I don't do that anymore. But you could help so many students. I help Emma. That's enough. Mr. Martinez, please understand. Do you know why I stopped playing? Victor's question cut through the restaurant noise like a blade. Several nearby diners turned to look. You want to hire me? You should know what you're getting. Mrs. Ashford's face paled. You don't have to. My wife died 22 years ago. Car accident. She was 8 months pregnant with our daughter. Victor's voice didn't waver, but Emma saw his hands shake. She'd heard this story only once before late at night when Victor thought she was asleep. I was supposed to be driving. I was supposed to pick her up from work. But I had a gig that night, some fancy party where they paid me $2,000 to play background music nobody listened to. So she took the bus instead. The table had gone silent. Even Snake, who'd known Victor for 30 years, looked stricken. She got hit by a drunk driver 3 blocks from our apartment. Driver walked away without a scratch. My wife and my unborn daughter died before the ambulance arrived. Victor finally looked at Mrs. Ashford. I didn't touch a piano for 15 years after that. Couldn't. Every note reminded me of the choice I made, music or family, and I chose wrong. Oh my God, Mrs. Ashford whispered. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I'd have made up peace with it a long time ago. Victor glanced at Emma. My son Emma's dad, he was 4 years old when it happened. I raised him angry, full of blame. He ran off when he was 17, ended up in prison by 20. Met Emma's mom there. She was a visitor, had a brother locked up. They had Emma tried to make it work, but addiction got them both eventually. CPS called me when Emma was 5. Said I could take her or she'd go into the system. Emma reached for his hand under the table. She knew this part. She'd lived this part. I took her, Victor continued, and the first thing I did was teach her piano. Not because I wanted to relive my glory days. Not because I was trying to fix my mistakes, but because Emma needed something that was hers. Something beautiful in a world that had been pretty damn ugly to her, and when I saw how much she loved it, how much joy it gave her, I realized music wasn't my enemy. My choices were. Mrs. Ashford wiped her eyes. That's a beautiful reason to teach. It's the only reason I teach, Emma. Nobody else. Because I can't carry the weight of anybody else's dreams. I'm still carrying my own. Victor squeezed Emma's hand. So no, I won't work for your academy. I won't identify promising students or consult on your scholarship program. What I do with Emma is personal, sacred, and I'm not packaging it up for people who pay 6 figures a year to feel good about helping the less fortunate. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Mrs. Ashford nodded. I understand and I respect that. She stood up. The offer for Emma still stands. Everything she needs will provide. No strings, no expectations beyond her continuing to work hard. She's earned it. Emma decides that, Victor said. Not me, not you. Both adults turned to look at her. Emma's mind raced. Full scholarship, private lessons, summer programs, everything she'd dreamed about since the day she'd arrived at Monroe. But Victor's words echoed in her head. Threatened people get dangerous. Can I think about it? Emma asked. Mrs. Ashford smiled. Of course, take all the time you need. But Emma, please know that what happened tonight, what I did assigning you that beginner's piece, underestimating you, that will never happen again. I promise you that. After she left, the table remained quiet. Victor stared at his half-eaten pizza like it held answers he couldn't find. You okay? Emma asked softly. Yeah, kiddo, I don't talk about that stuff much. I know, but I needed her to understand this ain't about money or prestige or building their program. This is about you and me, and nobody gets to turn that into something it's not. Snake cleared or throat bow. For what it's worth, brother, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard you say, and I've known you since we were both stupid 19-year-olds who thought we were invincible. We were pretty stupid, Victor agreed, a small smile returning. The stupidest, Tommy added. Remember that time you tried to jump your bike over? We don't talk about that, Victor said quickly, and the table erupted in laughter. The tension broke conversation flowing easier. Emma ate her pizza and listened to the stories, the teasing, the camaraderie. These men had become her family over the years. They taught her to change her own bike tire at 12, let her practice welding in Razor's shop, showed up to every school concert, even when it meant taking time off work. They never made her feel less than, never made her feel like she had to prove she belonged. That was the difference, Emma realized. Victor's brothers accepted her because she was Victor's. No questions asked, no tests to pass. But at Monroe, she'd always be on trial, always having to demonstrate her worth. Was that a life she wanted? The ice cream sundaes arrived, massive creations, bricked with hot fudge whipped cream and cherries that Brenda had definitely made bigger than standard. Eat up, honey, Brenda said, winking. You earned it. Emma dug in, letting the cold sweetness wash away the lingering stress. Across from her, Victor watched with obvious pride, and she felt something settle in her chest. I think I want to stay at Monroe, she said suddenly. Victor raised an eyebrow. Yeah, but on my terms. Not because they're offering me things, because I want to prove that kids like me belong there, that we're not charity cases or diversity statistics. We're just as good as anyone else. Maybe better. That's a heavy burden to carry, Emma. I know, but somebody's got to carry it. Might as well be me. Snake let out a low whistle. Kid's got steel in her spine. Wonder where she got that from. Not from me, Victor said, but he was smiling. I would have burned that place down tonight. Emma's got more grace than I ever had. Grace and guts, Razor added. Dangerous combination. They finished their Sundays and headed out into the parking lot. The night air was cool, carrying the smell of rain. Emma tilted her head back, looking at the stars barely visible through the city lights. You ever regret it? She asked Victor as they reached his bike. Not finishing Juilliard, not becoming what you could have been. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Every day for about 15 years, he admitted. But then you came along and I realized I didn't need to be a concert pianist to matter. I just needed to be your grandpa. Everything else, the training, the talent, the opportunities, I missed all of it, led me to you. And you're the best thing I ever made, Emma Martinez. Better than any music I could have created. Emma hugged him hard, burying her face in his leather vest that smelled like motor oil and Old Spice. I love you, Grandpa. Love you too, little Emma, more than you'll ever know. They rode home through empty streets, Emma clinging to Victor's back, the rumble of the motorcycle engine drowning out everything else. She closed her eyes and let herself just feel the wind, the speed, the solid presence of her grandfather in front of her. Tomorrow she'd face Monroe again. Tomorrow she'd deal with the politics and jealousy and complications that came with no longer being invisible. But tonight she was just Emma, Victor's granddaughter, a girl who played piano and ate pizza and belonged exactly where she was. When they pulled into the driveway of their small house, 2 bedrooms peeling paint, a lawn that needed mowing, Emma felt a rush of affection for it. This was home. Not fancy, not impressive, but real. Straight to bed, Victor said, dismounting. You've had a hell of a night. Can I practice first, just for a little while? Victor looked at her like she'd grown a second head. You just played the hardest piece in your repertoire in front of hundreds of people, and you want to practice? I need to. My hands feel twitchy. He laughed. All right, half hour, then bed for real. Emma went inside to their tiny living room, where the electric keyboard sat in the corner, surrounded by stacks of sheet music and theory books. She powered it on, adjusted the volume down so she wouldn't disturb the neighbors, and let her fingers find the keys. But instead of Hungarian Rhapsody, she played something else, something Victor had taught her years ago. A simple melody he'd written himself back when he still believed he'd make it as a composer. She heard his footsteps stop in the doorway. Wait, you remember that? Of course I remember. It's beautiful. It's unfinished. Never could figure out the ending. Emma played through the familiar phrases, then improvised, letting her instincts guide her. The melody resolved in a way that felt right, felt complete. When she finished, she turned to find Victor staring at her with tears streaming down his face. That's it, he said hoarsely. That's the ending I could never find. Really? Emma, that was... He crossed the room and pulled her into another hug. That was exactly what it needed. How did you know? I don't know, it just felt right. Victor held her for a long time. When he finally pulled back, he looked different somehow. Lighter, like a weight he'd been carrying for decades had suddenly lifted. You're going to be extraordinary, he said. You already are. But Emma promised me something. Anything. Don't let them change who you are. Monroe, those rich families, the opportunities they're going to throw at you, don't let any of it make you forget that you're enough exactly as you are. Thrift store shoes and all. Emma smiled. I promise. Good. Now seriously, bed. We've got church in the morning, and you know how Father Miguel gets when we're late. Emma groaned. Do we have to go? I'm exhausted. Yes, we have to go. You think God's going to be impressed? You play piano real nice. He wants to see you in those pews, giving thanks for the gifts you've been given. Fine, but I'm sleeping through the whole sermon. You always do, Victor said fondly. Now go, before I change my mind about letting you practice. Emma headed to her room, barely bigger than a closet with posters covering walls that had water stains in the corners. She changed out of her recital dress, hanging it carefully in her closet. It was the nicest thing she owned, bought at Goodwill, but altered by a woman at church who knew how to sew. She'd worn it tonight and faced down an audience that expected her to fail. She'd worn it and won. Tomorrow she'd go back to jeans and t-shirts, back to being the scholarship kid who rode 2 buses and brought her lunch in a paper bag. But something fundamental had shifted. She wasn't ashamed anymore, wasn't trying to blend in or make herself smaller so the other students would be more comfortable. She was Emma Martinez, Victor's granddaughter, a pianist who just proved she belonged on any stage anywhere. And if Monroe Academy didn't like it, they could deal. She climbed into bed exhausted but wired her mind replaying the evening over and over. The moment she'd announced she wouldn't play for Elise, Mrs. Ashford's shock, the audience's laughter turning to applause, Victor's tears. Her phone buzzed. A text from Cameron Westbrook. Hey, just wanted to say again that you were incredible tonight. See you Monday. Emma stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Thanks. Yeah, see you Monday. Another buzz, this time from a number she didn't recognize. This is Sarah Chen from Music Theory. I know we haven't talked much, but I just wanted to say what you did tonight was really brave. I'm glad you didn't let them push you around. Then another and another. Kids from school, most of whom had never spoken to her before, all sending variations of the same message. Congratulations. Respect. Solidarity. Emma turned her phone off. It was too much, too fast. She'd process it all tomorrow. Right now, she just needed to sleep. But as she closed her eyes, she heard it. The faint sound of piano music drifting from the living room. Victor was playing, really playing the way he hadn't in years. Emma smiled and let the music carry her into dreams. Monday morning arrived too fast. Emma stood at the bus stop, backpack slung over one shoulder, watching Monroe Academy's luxury cars glide past. BMWs, Mercedes, one Tesla that probably cost more than Victor's house. None of them stopped to offer her a ride even though they passed her every single morning. She didn't expect them to, not really. But after Friday night, some small part of her had hoped things might be different. The bus wheezed to a stop and Emma climbed on, swiping her student pass. Same driver as always, same torn seats, same smell of diesel and old coffee. She took her usual spot in the back and pulled out her phone. 47 new messages, most from numbers she didn't recognize. She scrolled through them quickly. Half were congratulations. The other half were variations of, who do you think you are? One message made her stop. You embarrassed Mrs. Ashford in front of everyone. Some of us actually respect our teachers. Watch your back. No name, sent from a blocked number. Emma's stomach twisted. Victor had warned her this would happen. Threatened people get dangerous. She deleted the message and shoved her phone back in her pocket. The bus pulled up to Monroe's gates 20 minutes later. Emma got off and walked through the entrance, past the immaculate lawns and fountain that probably cost more than a year of college tuition. Kids were already clustered in their usual groups. The theater crowd by the arts building. Athletes near the gym. Legacy students, the ones whose parents and grandparents had attended Monroe, claiming the prime spots on the front steps. Emma walked past all of them, head down, trying to be invisible again. Emma? She turned. Sarah Chen was jogging toward her violin case, bouncing against her hip. Emma barely knew Sarah beyond music theory class. They'd never actually spoken outside of group projects. Hey, Emma said cautiously. That was insane Friday night. Like genuinely insane. Sarah fell into step beside her. I've been playing violin since I was 4, and I've never seen anyone shut down a room like that. How are you not completely freaking out right now? Who says I'm not? Sarah laughed. Fair, but seriously, you're like a celebrity. Everyone's talking about you. Great. Emma didn't bother hiding her sarcasm. No, I mean it in a good way, mostly. Sarah hesitated. Okay, some people are being jerks about it. Madison Prescott's been telling everyone you cheated somehow. And Cameron's ex-girlfriend started a rumor that you bribed Mrs. Ashford to let you play. That's ridiculous. Obviously. But that's how it is here. Tall poppy syndrome. Someone stands out and everyone tries to cut them back down. Sarah pushed open the door to the main building. Just warning you, it's going to be weird for a while. Weird was an understatement. Emma walked into first period AP Calculus, and every conversation stopped. Heads turned. Someone whispered something behind their hand. Emma heard the word scholarship, followed by laughter. She took her seat and pulled out her textbook, face burning. Nice performance Friday, the girl next to her said. Her name was Ashley something. They'd never spoken before. Must be nice getting all that attention. I wasn't trying to get attention. Sure, that's why you made this huge dramatic scene instead of just playing your assigned piece like everyone else. Ashley flipped her blonde hair over her shoulder. My mom said you were completely disrespectful to Mrs. Ashford. She's on the board, and she's thinking about pulling her donation because of how you acted. Emma's hands clenched. I didn't do anything wrong. You humiliated a teacher in front of everyone. That's not wrong. She humiliated me first by assuming I couldn't play anything difficult. Maybe she was right to assume that. Maybe you just got lucky. Ashley turned away, dismissing her. Emma sat through the rest of class in silence, barely hearing the teacher's lecture on derivatives. When the bell finally rang, she bolted for the door. The hallway was worse. Everywhere she looked, people were staring. Some smiled. Most didn't. She caught fragments of conversations as she passed. Thinks she's so special now. Heard she threatened to sue if they didn't let her play. Grandfather's in a gang. Did you know that? Emma's breathing got shallow. Too many people. Too much attention. She ducked into the nearest bathroom and locked herself in a stall. Her phone buzzed. Victor, how's your first day back, kiddo? Emma stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. She could tell him the truth. That it was awful, that people were saying horrible things, that she wanted to go home and never come back. But Victor had his own problems. The shop was struggling. Money was tight. He didn't need her stress on top of his own. Fine, she typed back. Everything's fine. The bathroom door banged open. Multiple voices all talking at once. Can't believe she actually showed up. What did she think would happen? That we'd all just worship her now. My dad says they only gave her that scholarship for publicity, diversity stats, or whatever. Emma held her breath, feet pulled up so nobody would see her under the stall door. She's not even that good, a new voice added. Madison Prescott. Emma recognized her from music theory. My private instructor says Hungarian Rhapsody is technically difficult but emotionally shallow. Any decent pianist can play it with enough practice. Then why don't you play it? Someone challenged. Because I have better taste than to show off with some flashy crowd pleaser. Real musicians know the difference between skill and artistry. Emma bit her lip hard enough to taste blood. The girls eventually left, their voices fading down the hallway. Emma waited another 5 minutes before emerging from the stall. Her reflection in the mirror looked pale and shaky. Get it together, she told herself. You knew this would happen. But knowing and experiencing were two different things. Second period was music theory. Emma walked in to find Mrs. Ashford already at the piano running through scales. She looked up when Emma entered. Emma, could I see you for a moment? Emma approached, slowly aware of every eye in the classroom tracking her movement. I wanted to apologize again, Mrs. Ashford said quietly. Not just for Friday, but for the entire semester. I've been reviewing your placement tests, and I realize I made some serious errors in judgment. Starting today, I'm moving you into advanced theory and composition. You'll meet with me 3 times a week for private instruction, if that's acceptable to you. Emma's throat felt tight. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. No need to thank me. You earned this. Mrs. Ashford smiled, but it was sad around the edges. I should have seen it from the beginning. That's on me. Emma returned to her seat as the bell rang. Cameron Westbrook caught her eye from across the room and gave her a small thumbs up. At least someone was being normal. The class proceeded as usual until Mrs. Ashford announced the semester project. You'll be composing an original piece, minimum 3 minutes, to be performed at the winter concert. This will count for 40% of your final grade. Hands shot up immediately. Questions about requirements, instrumentation style. Emma barely heard them. An original composition. 3 minutes. Winter concert. She could do this. She wanted to do this. Miss Martinez, Mrs. Ashford's voice cut through the chatter. Given your performance Friday, I'd like you to perform your composition on the grand piano in the main auditorium. If you're comfortable with that. The classroom went dead silent. Emma felt every eye on her again. Some hopeful, most resentful. Yes, ma'am. I'd be honored. Wonderful. We'll schedule additional practice time for you in the auditorium so you can get comfortable with the acoustics. After class, Madison Prescott cornered Emma by the lockers. Must be nice, Madison said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Getting special treatment just because you made a scene. I'm not getting special treatment. Really, because last time I checked, we all have to perform our compositions in the practice rooms. But you get the grand auditorium. Wonder why that is? Mrs. Ashford offered. Mrs. Ashford feels guilty. There's a difference. Madison leaned closer. You think one good performance makes you special. My family's donated over $2 million to this school. My mother's name is on the music building. I've been training since I was 3 years old with the best instructors money can buy. And you're just some scholarship case who got lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. Sure it did. Right place, right time, right sob story. Poor little Emma with her biker grandfather. Of course they had to give you a chance. But don't confuse pity with talent. Emma's hand shook. Is that what you tell yourself, that anyone who's better than you just got lucky? Madison's expression turned vicious. Watch yourself, Martinez. This school might be impressed by your little performance, but I'm not. And neither are the people who actually matter here. You're still just the charity case. Don't forget it. She walked away before Emma could respond. Emma made it through lunch by hiding in the library, made it through history and English by keeping her head down and her mouth shut. But by the time final period rolled around orchestra practice, she was ready to snap. The practice room was packed when she arrived. Every chair taking instruments already out and warming up. Emma headed for the piano in the corner of her usual spot. Someone was sitting there, Madison Prescott, at Emma's piano, playing some simple etude with exaggerated precision. "Excuse me," Emma said. "That's my seat." "Not anymore." Madison didn't look up. "Mrs. Ashford reassigned me to piano for this semester. Apparently we need a stronger pianist for the winter concert repertoire. Hope you don't mind." Emma's vision blurred. "That's my instrument." "We share instruments here, Martinez. Didn't anyone explain that to you?" "Oh, wait, you probably didn't have to share anything at your old school. Hard to share when you don't have anything worth sharing." Laughter rippled through the room. Emma stood there frozen as Madison continued playing. Badly, making deliberate mistakes and then giggling like it was all a joke. "Miss Martinez." The orchestra director, Mr. Huang, appeared in the doorway. "I need you on second violin today. Madison will handle piano." "But sir, is there a problem?" Emma looked at Madison's smug face, at the other students pretending not to watch, at Mr. Huang's impatient expression. "No, sir, no problem." She took a violin from the instrument closet, not even her size strings slightly flat, and found a chair in the back row, the furthest possible position from where she belonged. Madison caught her eye and smiled. Practice was torture. Emma fumbled through pieces she could normally play in her sleep, the unfamiliar violin fighting her at every turn. Mr. Huang corrected her twice his tone, suggesting she was wasting everyone's time. When practice finally ended, Emma was the first one out the door. She practically ran to her locker, grabbed her stuff, and headed for the exit. "Emma, wait up." Sarah Chen again jogging to catch her. "Are you okay? What Madison did in there was completely messed up." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. Nobody would be fine after that." Sarah fell into step beside her. "Look, I know we don't really know each other, but if you need someone to talk to..." "I said I'm fine." Emma's voice came out harsher than intended. Sarah stepped back, hurt flashing across her face. "Okay, sorry for trying to help." "No, Emma stopped. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to snap. I just need to go home." "I get it, but Emma, don't let them win. That's what Madison wants. She wants you to give up and disappear. Don't give her that satisfaction." Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. The bus ride home felt endless. When she finally walked through her front door, Victor was waiting in the kitchen, grease under his fingernails from working on someone's bike. "How was school?" he asked, reaching for a beer from the fridge. "Fine." "Emma," she looked up at his tone. Victor was watching her with those eyes that saw through every lie she'd ever tried to tell. "It was awful," she admitted, her voice breaking. "Everyone hates me. They think I'm showing off, or that I cheated, or that I don't deserve to be there. Madison Prescott took my seat in orchestra, and the director didn't even care. Mrs. Ashford's trying to help, but that just makes it worse, because now they think I'm getting special treatment. And someone sent me an anonymous message telling me to watch my back." Victor's expression darkened. "Someone threatened you." "It wasn't a real threat, just someone being mean." "Show me." Emma pulled out her phone and found the message. Victor read it, his jaw clenching. "This is serious, Emma. It's just words. Words turn into actions. I've seen it happen." Victor set down his beer. "We're going to Morrison tomorrow. He needs to know what's happening." "No, that'll make everything worse. They already think I'm getting special treatment. If I go running to the director because someone was mean to me..." "This isn't about being mean. This is harassment. Victor's voice was firm. You think I'm going to let people threaten my granddaughter and not do anything about it? Please, Grandpa, just let me handle it. Give me one more day. If it gets worse, then we'll tell someone. But right now, I need to prove I can deal with this myself. Victor studied her for a long moment. One day, but Emma, you don't have to prove anything to these people. Yeah, I do. That's the whole point. She went to her room and collapsed on her bed, too exhausted to even cry. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the blocked number. Think you're special. Wait until the winter concert. Everyone's going to see you're nothing but a fraud. Enjoy your little moment while it lasts. Emma stared at the words until they blurred. Then she deleted the message and turned off her phone. She must have fallen asleep because when she opened her eyes again, the room was dark and she could hear Victor playing piano in the living room. Not the melody from Friday night. Something new. Something that sounded like anger and frustration and fierce protection all rolled into one. Emma got up and padded down the hallway. Victor didn't stop playing when she appeared in the doorway, just shifted slightly to make room for her on the bench. She sat beside him and listened. After a while, she added her own part, a counter melody that wove around his, sometimes supporting, sometimes challenging, but always connected. They played together until Emma's fingers ached and Victor's breathing steadied. When they finally stopped, the silence felt less heavy. You gonna tell me what that was about? Emma asked. Could ask you the same thing. I asked first. Victor smiled tiredly. I was playing out my anger. Felt better than punching a wall. Were you angry at me? God, no, never at you. He put his arm around her shoulders. Angry at a world that makes kids like you work twice as hard for half the recognition. Angry at myself for not protecting you better. Angry at those rich families who think money makes them better than everyone else. You can't protect me from everything. Doesn't stop me from wanting to. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Victor spoke again. Your grandmother used to say that the biggest act of rebellion is refusing to be small when the world wants you to shrink. She said it about me, actually, when I was thinking about dropping out of Juilliard to take care of her and my mom. She told me I had to stay, had to be big and loud and undeniable because that's what the world needed from people like us. But you left anyway. I did, and I've regretted it every day since. Victor looked at her. Don't make my mistakes, Emma. Don't let fear or anger or other people's opinions make you smaller than you are. You played Hungarian Rhapsody in front of 300 people, and you were magnificent. Don't let anyone take that away from you. Even if they make my life miserable. Especially then, because that means you're doing something right. Emma leaned against him. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You're stronger than you think. Stronger than me at your age, that's for sure. Victor kissed the top of her head. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's a new day, and I expect you to walk into that school with your head high, understand? Yes, sir. Emma went back to bed but couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying the day. Madison's cruelty, the anonymous messages, the feeling of being watched and judged and found wanting by everyone around her. But she also remembered Sarah trying to be friendly. Cameron's thumbs up in class, Mrs. Ashford's apology. Not everyone was against her. She just had to find her people. The ones who valued talent over pedigree, who saw her as Emma, not as the scholarship kid or the charity case or any other label people wanted to stick on her. Tomorrow she'd try again, head high like Victor said, and if Madison Prescott wanted a war, Emma would give her one, just not the way Madison expected. Emma walked into Monroe Academy Tuesday morning with her shoulders back and her chin up exactly like Victor had told her. The stares started immediately, but this time she met them head on. No more hiding, no more shrinking. Sarah Chen waved from across the courtyard. Emma waved back. You look different, Sarah said when Emma reached her. More, I don't know, determined, just tired of being scared. Good, because I heard Madison's planning something. She was talking to Ashley and her crew in the parking lot this morning. They stopped when I walked by, but I heard your name. Emma's stomach tightened. Let them plan. I've got work to do. First period passed without incident. Second period, advanced theory and composition. Her new class was in a different building. Emma had to ask for directions twice, arriving just as the bell rang. The classroom was smaller than regular theory, with only 12 students instead of 30. All of them looked up when she entered. Emma recognized a few faces, the really serious musicians, the ones who practiced 6 hours a day and talked about Berkeley and Juilliard like they were guaranteed admissions. Ah, Miss Martinez. Mrs. Ashford gestured to an empty seat near the front. Class, this is Emma. She'll be joining us starting today. Emma has demonstrated exceptional aptitude in both performance and theory, so I expect you all to welcome her appropriately. A few nods, mostly silence. Emma sat down and pulled out her notebook. We're discussing motivic development today, Mrs. Ashford continued. Can anyone give me an example of a composer who uses a simple motif and transforms it throughout an entire piece? Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, someone said immediately. A boy with dark hair and glasses. The four-note motif appears in every movement. Excellent, Jason. Other examples. Ravel's Bolero, a girl offered. Same melody repeats, but the orchestration constantly changes. Good. Emma, what about you? Any thoughts? Emma's mind went blank for a second. Everyone was looking at her, waiting to see if she belonged here. Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2, she said finally. The folk melody appears in different variations throughout. Starts slow and simple in the Lisan, then transforms into something completely different in the Friska. Mrs. Ashford smiled. Perfect example. And since you've performed it recently, perhaps you can demonstrate. Emma's heart jumped. Now, why not we have a piano? Show us the motivic transformation. Emma walked to the piano on shaky legs. 12 pairs of eyes tracked her movement. She sat down, placed her hands on the keys, and played the opening folk melody. Slow, simple. Then she jumped ahead, playing the same melody transformed in the Friska section. Fast, complex, almost unrecognizable until you knew what you were listening for. When she finished, the silence stretched for 3 full seconds. That's insane, Jason said. You just played that from memory, the whole thing. I've practiced it a lot. Yeah, no kidding. He leaned forward. How long did it take you to learn it? About 6 months. 6 months? That piece usually takes years. Mr. Chen, Mrs. Ashford interrupted gently. Let's stay on topic. Emma, thank you for that demonstration. You can return to your seat. The rest of class flew by. Complex theory concepts that Emma had only read about in books. Discussions about harmonic progression and counterpoint that made her brain hurt in the best way. By the time the bell rang, she felt like she'd actually learned something instead of just enduring 50 minutes of judgment. Jason caught up with her in the hallway. Hey, that was really impressive back there. Most people who get moved into advanced can barely keep up for the first month. You jumped right in. Thanks. Emma waited for the other shoe to drop. The backhanded compliment, the subtle dig. But Jason just smiled. Want to study together sometime? I'm working on my winter concert composition, and I could use a second opinion. Mrs. Ashford says mine is too derivative, but I can't figure out where I'm going wrong. Sure, yeah, I'd like that. Cool, here. He scribbled his number on a piece of paper. Text me when you're free. There's a group of us who meet in the practice rooms after school. You should join. Emma pocketed the number, something warm spreading in her chest. An actual friend? Maybe. Third period was calculus. Emma took her seat and pulled out her homework, deliberately not looking at Ashley 2 chairs over. Class, the teacher announced, I'm handing back yesterday's quiz. Overall scores were disappointing. Only 3 people scored above 90%. He walked around distributing papers. Emma's landed on her desk, face down. She flipped it over. 97%, the highest score in the class. Ashley leaned over to look. Her face went red when she saw Emma's grade. Lucky guess, Ashley muttered. Emma didn't respond. She just smiled and tucked the quiz into her folder. Lunch came and Emma headed for the cafeteria, still planning to eat alone in the library. But Sarah intercepted her at the door. Nope, you're eating with us today. Us? Me and some other people who aren't complete jerks. Come on. Sarah led her to a table in the corner where 4 other students sat. Emma recognized 2 of them from orchestra. The others were unfamiliar. Everyone, this is Emma. Emma, this is Marcus, Jenny, David. And you already know Olivia from orchestra. Hi, Emma said awkwardly, still standing. Sit down, Marcus said, patting the bench beside him. Sarah told us about what Madison did yesterday. That was messed up. Emma sat slowly. You guys don't have to. Yes, we do, Jenny interrupted. Madison's been bullying people for years, Someone needs to stand up to her, and apparently that someone is you. So we're backing you up. I didn't ask for a fight. You didn't have to. She picked one with you the second you showed you were better than her. David pushed his chips across the table toward Emma. Eat, you look like you're about to pass out. Emma took a chip, her throat tight. Why are you being nice to me? You don't even know me. We know enough, Olivia said quietly. We know you're talented. We know you worked your ass off to get here. And we know Madison's spreading lies about you because she's threatened. That's enough. For the first time since Friday night, Emma felt like she could breathe properly. These weren't fake allies or people trying to use her for social capital. They were just decent humans who saw injustice and decided to do something about it. Thank you, Emma said softly. Don't thank us yet, Marcus said. Madison's got the winter concert in 6 weeks. That's her chance to humiliate you publicly. She's been telling everyone your composition is going to be a disaster. How does she know anything about my composition? I haven't even started it yet. She doesn't, but she's planting seeds, getting people to expect failure so that even if you're amazing, they'll find reasons to tear you down. Sarah took a bite of her sandwich. We need a strategy. A strategy for what? For winning, not just the concert, everything. Showing everyone that you belong here just as much as any legacy student. Emma shook her head. I don't want to play games. I just want to compose my piece and perform it. That's not how Monroe works, David said. You can be the most talented person here, but if the social structure is against you, you'll never get the opportunities you deserve. Trust me, I transferred here 2 years ago on a scholarship. Spent the whole first year getting crushed by people like Madison because I thought I could just keep my head down and work hard. Didn't matter. They made sure I got the worst performance slots, the least stage time, the teachers who didn't care. Finally had to fight back. Helping them by being so good they couldn't ignore me, by building alliances with people who mattered, by refusing to let them make me small. David leaned forward. You've already done the first part. Now you need the second. Emma's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Your grandfather's bike shop is pretty run down. Would be a shame if something happened to it. The blood drained from Emma's face. What's wrong? Sarah asked immediately. Emma showed them the message. The table went silent. That's not just bullying, Marcus said, his voice tight. That's a threat, a real one. We need to tell someone, Olivia said. Morrison, campus security, someone. No, Emma's voice came out stronger than she felt. That's exactly what they want. They want me scared. They want me to run crying to the administration so they can say I can't handle the pressure. Emma, they're threatening your grandfather's business. I know what they're doing. Emma's hands shook as she put her phone away. And I'm not giving them the satisfaction. I'm going to compose the best piece anyone at this school has ever heard. I'm going to perform it perfectly, and I'm going to prove that I earned my place here. That's brave but stupid, David said bluntly. These people play dirty. You need backup. Fine, then you guys are my backup, but we do this my way. No running to adults, no making it into some big dramatic thing. We just work. We practice. We get ready. The group exchanged glances. Finally, Sarah nodded. Okay, your way. But if it gets worse, if they actually do something to your grandfather or you, then we go to Morrison. Deal. Deal. The rest of lunch passed in tense planning. Sarah volunteered to keep ears open for whatever Madison was scheming. Marcus offered to help Emma with the technical aspects of composition since he was a year ahead and had already done the winter concert project. Jenny and David promised to spread positive word about Emma counteracting Madison's poison. Emma left the cafeteria feeling stronger than when she'd entered. Not alone anymore. Not fighting this battle solo. Orchestra practice that afternoon was a war zone from the first note. Madison sat at Emma's piano again this time, with a smug smile that said she knew exactly how much it hurt. Mr. Huang handed Emma a viola this time, even worse than yesterday's violin. Miss Martinez, he said when she hesitated, is there a problem? Emma looked at Madison, at the piano, at her instrument. No, sir, no problem. She took the viola and found her seat in the back. But this time she didn't fumble. She played every note perfectly, even on an unfamiliar instrument. Played them so well that Mr. Huang stopped the entire orchestra twice to compliment her tone. Madison's smile faltered. After practice, as everyone packed up, Madison cornered Emma by the instrument closet. You think you're clever, Madison hissed. Playing well on viola. That just makes you look desperate, like you're trying too hard to prove something. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just playing music. No, you're trying to steal my spotlight. This is my senior year, my last chance to shine before college applications. And you're ruining it with your little scholarship sob story. Emma met her eyes steadily. If you're worried about a sophomore scholarship student ruining your senior year, maybe you're not as talented as you think you are. Madison's face went scarlet. You little girls. Mr. Huang appeared between them. Is everything all right here? Fine, Madison said through clenched teeth, just having a friendly conversation. Then perhaps you should continue it elsewhere. I need to lock up. They separated. Emma grabbed her backpack and headed for the exit, heart pounding. She'd actually stood up to Madison. Hadn't backed down, hadn't apologized. It felt terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Outside, Victor was waiting by his bike. Emma had texted him earlier asking for a ride home instead of taking the bus. She needed the comfort of the motorcycle's rumble, the solidity of her grandfather's presence. How was today? Victor asked as she climbed on behind him. Better. Still hard, but better. Good enough. They rode home in silence, Emma clinging to Victor's back, letting the wind and noise clear her head. When they pulled into the driveway, she noticed something off immediately. The shop door was open. It was never open after 5. Victor noticed too. He killed the engine and held up a hand, signaling Emma to stay put. Then he walked toward the shop slowly, his whole body tense. Emma's heart hammered. The threat from earlier would be a shame if something happened to it. Stay on the bike, Victor ordered. But Emma couldn't. She slid off and followed him, staying a few paces back. Victor pushed the door open fully. Who's there? Relax, brother! Snake's voice came from inside. It's just us. Emma sagged with relief. Victor's shoulders dropped from their defensive posture. Inside Snake Razor, Tommy and 3 other club members were gathered around the workbench. Tools were spread out, parts organized. They were working on a bike, but not just any bike. A vintage Harley that looked like it had been pulled from a junkyard. What's all this? Victor asked. Found her at an estate sale, Snake said. Owner died, family just wanted it gone. Figured we could restore her, sell her, put some money in the shop's account. Victor's expression softened. You didn't have to do that. Yeah, we did. You're always helping everyone else. Time someone helped you back. Tommy gestured at the bike. Plus, this beauty deserves a second chance. Like someone else we know. He winked at Emma. We heard about the messages, Razor added quietly. Emma's been getting threats. Victor's head snapped toward Emma. What messages, plural? Emma pulled out her phone and showed him. Both messages. The one about watching her back and the one about the shop. Victor's face went dark. Dangerous. Why didn't you tell me about the second one? Because I knew you'd do something crazy and I need to handle this myself. Handle it, Emma. They threatened my shop. They threatened you. With words. Just words. Words that promised action. Victor looked at his brothers. We need to find out who's sending these. Already working on it, Snake said. Got a buddy who's good with tech. He'll trace the number. And then what? Emma asked. What happens when you find out it's some rich kid from Monroe? You gonna show up at their house on your bikes? That'll really help my reputation. I don't give a damn about your reputation. Well, I do, Emma's voice cracked. This is my fight, Grandpa, mine. And I need to fight it my way, which means not having my biker grandfather show up to intimidate teenagers. The shop went silent. Emma had never raised her voice to Victor before, never contradicted him so directly. Victor studied her for a long moment. Then surprisingly, he nodded. Okay, your way. But Emma, if they make good on that threat, if they touch this shop or you or anything we care about, then it becomes my fight. Understood. Understood. Good. Now get inside and do your homework. I need to help these idiots figure out what they're doing with this carburetor. Emma went inside but couldn't focus on homework. Instead, she sat at the keyboard and started composing. Fragments of melody, chord progressions that felt right even if she couldn't explain why. She recorded everything on her phone so she wouldn't forget. 3 hours passed without her noticing. When Victor finally came in covered in grease and smiling, she'd filled 12 pages of staff paper with notes. What's all this? He asked, looking over her shoulder. My winter concert piece. Maybe. I don't know yet. It's not good enough. Let me hear it. Emma played what she'd written. The opening was dark and aggressive, almost angry. Then it shifted into something more complex. Layers of melody weaving together, sometimes harmonizing, sometimes clashing, but always moving forward. When she finished, Victor was quiet for a long time. That's about today, isn't it? He said finally. About fighting back. Yeah, how'd you know? Because I hear it in every note. The anger, the determination, the refusal to give up. Victor put his hand on her shoulder. It's good, Emma, really good, but it needs something else. What? Hope. Right now it's all struggle, all fight, but the best music has moments of light, moments where you remember what you're fighting for. Emma stared at the sheet music. He was right. The piece was technically impressive but emotionally exhausting. It needed balance. I don't know how to write hope, she admitted. Everything feels like a battle right now. Then write about after the battle, about what comes next, about victory even if you can't see it yet. Emma nodded slowly. Can you help me? I'm stuck on the bridge section. Always. They spent the next hour working together, Victor's scarred hands demonstrating chord progressions, while Emma wrote them down and modified them. The piece slowly transformed from a war cry into something more nuanced. A journey. A story of struggle that ended not in defeat, but in triumph. By the time they finished the rough draft, it was past midnight. Emma's eyes burned with exhaustion, but her heart felt lighter. This is it, she said, playing through the full piece. This is what I'm performing. It's ambitious, complex. They're going to expect you to fail. Let them. I've got 6 weeks to make it perfect. And I will. Victor pulled her into a hug. That's my girl. Emma went to bed that night with melodies still running through her head. She dreamed of the winter concert, of standing on stage in front of everyone who doubted her, of proving them all wrong. Wednesday started with another anonymous message. Your piece will never be ready in time. Give up now and save yourself the embarrassment. Emma deleted it without responding. Thursday brought a locker incident. Someone had broken into Emma's locker and scattered all her sheet music across the hallway. It took 20 minutes to collect everything, and she was late to first period. Friday, she found fraud written on her assigned practice room door in permanent marker. Each incident made her angrier, more determined. Sarah and her crew documented everything, building a case if Emma ever decided to go to Morrison. But Emma just kept working, kept practicing, kept refining her composition until every note was exactly where it needed to be. Marcus helped her with the technical aspects. Jason gave feedback on the harmonic structure. Sarah worked out the emotional arc. Even Olivia, who played violin, offered suggestions on how to make certain passages more dramatic. Emma's piece was becoming something bigger than herself, a collaboration, a statement. By the end of the second week, Madison escalated. Emma walked into advanced theory to find Madison sitting in the classroom talking to Mrs. Ashford. Both of them looked serious. Emma, Mrs. Ashford said, Miss Prescott has made some concerning allegations. She says you've been harassing her, making threats. Emma's stomach dropped. That's not true. She says you've been sending her anonymous messages, threatening her performance at the winter concert. I haven't sent anyone anything. I've been receiving threats, not sending them. Madison dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I have screenshots, Mrs. Ashford. Messages from a blocked number saying horrible things about me. The phone company traced them to the area near Emma's house. Let me see, Emma demanded. Madison pulled out her phone and showed messages that were almost identical to the ones Emma had received. Same tone, same threats, but supposedly sent by Emma. This is insane, Emma said. Why would I threaten you? I don't care about you enough to threaten you. Because you're jealous, Madison said, her voice breaking convincingly. You know I'm better than you. You know that when we both perform at the winter concert, everyone's going to see that you're just a one-hit wonder. So you're trying to psych me out. That's ridiculous. Is it? Madison turned to Mrs. Ashford. She's been acting strange for weeks, aggressive, confrontational. Ask Mr. Huang, ask anyone in orchestra. She's been trying to intimidate me. Mrs. Ashford looked at Emma with disappointment. Is any of this true? Ew. No, none of it, Emma's voice rose. She's the one who's been making my life hell. She took my seat in orchestra. She's been spreading rumors about me. Can you prove any of that? Mrs. Ashford asked gently. Emma opened her mouth, closed it. She had her own anonymous messages, but they came from a blocked number just like the ones supposedly from her. No proof of who sent them, just her word against Madison's. And Madison was a legacy student with a mother on the board. Emma was a scholarship kid with a biker grandfather. Who would they believe? I thought so, Madison said softly. Mrs. Ashford, I'm scared. I don't feel safe around her. All right, Mrs. Ashford stood up. Emma, until we sort this out, I'm going to have to ask you to work independently. No more group discussions. You'll submit your assignments directly to me and you're isolating me, Emma interrupted. That's what you're doing. You're punishing me based on her lies without any actual evidence. I'm protecting all my students. If Madison feels unsafe, what about me? What about how I feel? She's framing me and you're just letting her do it. Emma, lower your voice. No. Tears were streaming down Emma's face now. This is exactly what happened at the recital. You assumed I couldn't play Liszt. You gave me a beginner's piece because you thought I wasn't good enough. And now you're assuming I'm guilty because I'm the scholarship kid and she's the legacy student with the perfect family and the $1 million donation. Mrs. Ashford's face went pale. That's not. It is. You know it is. And you're doing the same thing all over again. Emma grabbed her backpack and walked out, ignoring Mrs. Ashford calling after her. She made it to the bathroom before the sobs came. Great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. The bathroom door opened. Sarah's voice. Emma, I heard what happened. Madison's bragging about it in the hallway. She won, Emma said through tears. She actually won. She won a battle, not the war. Sarah sat down beside her on the cold tile floor. But Emma, we need to go to Morrison now. This has gone too far. With what proof? She's got screenshots. She's got her perfect reputation. I've got nothing except people who hate me. You've got us. Your friends will all testify that Madison's been targeting you. Student testimony against the daughter of a board member, that'll go great. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then we go public, social media, local news, make enough noise that Monroe has to take it seriously, and ruin any chance I have of staying here. Better than letting them destroy you. Emma wiped her eyes. I need to think. I need to figure out my next move. But even as she said it, she knew her options were running out. Madison had just checkmated her, and Emma had no idea how to get out of it. Emma sat on the bathroom floor for another 10 minutes before Sarah's phone rang. It's Marcus, Sarah said, looking at the screen. He says we need to meet. Now, says he found something. They met in the empty band room during lunch. Marcus was already there with David and Jason, all of them huddled around Marcus's laptop. Tell me you've got good news, Emma said, exhausted. Better than good. Marcus turned the laptop so she could see. I've been tracking the IP addresses of those anonymous messages. Both the ones you received and the ones Madison claims came from you. How did you? My older brother works in cybersecurity. He owed me a favor. Marcus pointed at the screen. Look at this. All the messages, both sets came from the same location. The Prescott estate. Madison sent the threats to herself and made it look like they came from near your house by using a VPN. Emma's heart jumped. You can prove this. I can prove the messages originated from her family's internet connection. The VPN mask was amateur level. Anyone with basic tech knowledge could trace it back. Marcus pulled up more screens. But there's more. She's been planning this for weeks. I found posts in a private Discord server where she's bragging about setting you up. Screenshots, timestamps, everything. Oh my God, Sarah breathed. How did you access a private server? Emma asked. Let's just say Madison's not as good at digital security as she thinks she is. Her password was literally Madison123. Marcus saved everything to a flash drive. This is enough to take to Morrison. Actual evidence. Not just he said, she said. Emma stared at the evidence, her mind racing. This could fix everything. Clear her name. Get Madison expelled, probably. But something Victor had said echoed in her head. Don't let fear or anger or other people's opinions make you smaller than you are. No, Emma said slowly. Everyone turned to look at her. What do you mean, no? David asked. This is exactly what we needed. I know. But if I go to Morrison with this, I win by exposing Madison. I win by tearing someone else down. Emma stood up. That's not who I want to be. That's not what I want this to be about. Emma, she tried to destroy you, Sarah said. She deserves to be exposed. Maybe, but I deserve to win on my own terms. By being better, by proving my talent matters more than her manipulations. Emma took the flash drive from Marcus. I'm keeping this as insurance. If she escalates again, if she actually does something to hurt Victor or the shop, then we use it. But until then, I'm going to beat her the way that actually matters. At the winter concert, Jason said, understanding dawning on his face. At the winter concert, with my composition, with my performance, let her think she won. Let her get comfortable. And then I'm going to show everyone what real music sounds like. Marcus shook his head. That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably both, Emma admitted, but it's what I need to do. The next 4 weeks were the hardest of Emma's life. Mrs. Ashford kept her separated from the rest of advanced theory, which meant Emma worked alone on her composition. No feedback, no collaboration, just her and the music. Madison made sure everyone knew about Emma's harassment. Whispers followed Emma through the hallways. More kids avoided her. Even some of Sarah's group started keeping their distance, not wanting to be associated with the drama. But Emma kept working. Every spare moment, she was in a practice room perfecting her piece. The composition had evolved into something that scared her with its emotional intensity. 23 minutes of music that told the story of everything she'd been through. The struggle, the anger, the determination. And yes, the hope that Victor had insisted she needed. She titled it Unbreakable. Victor heard it for the first time 2 weeks before the concert. Emma played it straight through, not stopping, even when her fingers cramped, not pausing, even when the emotions threatened to overwhelm her. When the final note faded, Victor sat in silence for a full minute. Emma, he said finally, his voice thick, that's not just music. That's your soul on those keys. Is it good enough? Good enough, kiddo, that's the best thing I've ever heard. And I've heard a lot of music in my life. He pulled her into a hug. You're going to destroy them, in the best possible way. The week before the concert, Director Morrison called Emma into his office. She walked in expecting the worst. Expulsion, suspension, some consequence of Madison's lies that hadn't caught up with her yet. Instead, Morrison gestured to a chair. Sit down, Miss Martinez. We need to talk. Emma sat, hands clasped in her lap to hide their shaking. I've been reviewing the situation with Miss Prescott's allegations, Morrison began, and I have to say something doesn't sit right with me. The timing, the convenient lack of evidence beyond screenshots that could easily be fabricated. The fact that this all started right after your successful recital. Emma's heart hammered. Sir, I've been at this school for 30 years, Miss Martinez. I've seen every kind of student manipulation there is, and this has all the hallmarks of a setup. Morrison leaned forward. So I'm going to ask you directly, did you send those messages to Miss Prescott? Emma met his eyes steadily. No, sir, I didn't. Do you know who did? Emma thought about the flash drive in her backpack, the evidence that could end this right now. I have suspicions, she said carefully, but I can't prove anything definitively. Morrison studied her for a long moment. You're protecting yourself legally. Smart. But Emma, if you have evidence, I'd rather let my performance speak for itself, sir, at the winter concert, if that's still allowed. Of course it's allowed. Mrs. Ashford has assured me your composition is remarkable. She's been listening to your practice sessions. Morrison's expression softened slightly. I made a mistake at your recital, Emma. I almost didn't let you play Hungarian Rhapsody because I didn't believe you could do it. I was wrong. I'm trying not to make that same mistake again. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. If your composition isn't ready, if you fail on that stage, Madison wins. She'll have proven you can't handle the pressure. Is that a risk you're willing to take? Yes, sir, because I won't fail. Morrison nodded slowly. Then I'll see you at the concert. And Emma, for what it's worth, I hope you prove me right for believing in you this time. Emma left his office feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Morrison hadn't completely cleared her name, but he'd given her something just as valuable. Doubt. Doubt in Madison's story. Doubt that would make people pay attention to the concert with fresh eyes. 3 days before the concert, Madison cornered Emma in the practice rooms. I know what you're doing, Madison said, blocking the doorway. I'm practicing, like everyone else. No, you're planning something, some big dramatic moment where you think you're going to humiliate me. Madison's voice was low and vicious. But here's what's actually going to happen. You're going to choke. You're going to get up on that stage in front of everyone and you're going to fall apart. Because that's what people like you do. You get one lucky break and then you crumble under the real pressure. Emma stood up from the piano bench. Are you done? I've been at this school since kindergarten. My family built half these buildings. You're nobody. A scholarship case who got lucky once. After Saturday, everyone's going to remember that. Maybe, Emma said calmly. Or maybe they'll remember that talent matters more than money. That hard work beats privilege. That a girl from nowhere can be better than someone who's had every advantage handed to her. Madison's face twisted. You don't get to win. I won't let you. You don't get to decide that. The music does. Emma walked past her shoulder, checking Madison just slightly. Behind her, she heard Madison's sharp intake of breath. The sound of someone who just realized they might actually lose. 2 days before the concert, Victor got a call from Snake. We traced those messages. Snake said, his voice crackling through the phone on speaker. Marcus was right. Came from the Prescott house. But there's more. Madison's mom has been calling other board members trying to get votes to revoke Emma's scholarship after the concert. She's building a case that Emma's a disruptive influence. Victor's jaw clenched. When were you going to tell me this? I'm telling you now. Question is, what are we going to do about it? Victor looked at Emma, who was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. She met his eyes and shook her head slightly. Nothing, Victor said into the phone. We're doing nothing. Brother, they're trying to kick Emma out. And Emma's going to make sure they have no grounds to do it. She's going to perform so well that even Prescott's mom can't justify removing her scholarship. Right, kiddo? Right, Emma said, her voice stronger than she felt. After Snake hung up, Victor sat down across from her. You sure about this? We've got evidence now. We could end this. I need to do it my way, Grandpa. Please trust me. I trust you more than anyone in the world. I once don't trust them. Victor reached across the table and took her hand. But okay, your way. Just promise me if you need any of us, you'll ask. I promise. The night before the concert, Emma couldn't sleep. She ran through her composition in her head, finding problems that probably weren't there, imagining mistakes she probably wouldn't make. At 2 a.m, she gave up and went to the living room keyboard. Victor appeared in the doorway 10 minutes later, hair sticking up, wearing an old Hells Angels t-shirt. Can't sleep either, he asked. Too nervous. Want to run through it one more time? I've run through it 1,000 times. Then once more won't hurt. Victor sat down beside her on the bench. Play it for me. Not like you're performing, like you're telling me a story, our story. Emma took a breath and started playing. The opening chords dark and heavy. The angry middle section where the melodies clashed and fought. The bridge where everything seemed to fall apart. And then the resolution, the part Victor had helped her write, where hope broke through the chaos and transformed everything. She played it slower than usual, more deliberately, letting each phrase breathe. When she finished, Victor had tears on his face again. You know what your grandmother used to say? He asked quietly. She said that music is just organized truth. That's what you've written here, Emma. The truth of who you are, where you came from, what you've survived. And anyone who hears this really hears it, they'll understand. What if they don't want to understand? Then that's their loss, not yours. Victor kissed her forehead. Now get some sleep. You've got a concert to destroy tomorrow. The day of the winter concert arrived cold and clear. Emma woke at 6, too anxious to sleep any longer. She showered, dressed carefully in the same thrift store dress from her first recital, a deliberate choice, and tried to eat breakfast. The food sat like rocks in her stomach. Victor drove her to school at noon for final rehearsals. The parking lot was already filling with families arriving early to get good seats. You want me to stay? Victor asked. No, come back at 7 with everyone else. I need to do the rehearsal on my own. Okay, but Emma, remember what I told you? Play your truth. Nothing else matters. Inside the auditorium was chaos. Students running sound checks. Mrs. Ashford coordinating with the stage crew. Parents hovering anxiously. Emma found her assigned practice room and ran through her piece 3 more times. Each time something felt off. Too fast, too slow, too mechanical. Not emotional enough. At 5 o'clock, she gave up and just sat at the piano, hands in her lap, trying to breathe. A knock on the door. Sarah poked her head in. Hey, how are you holding up? Terrified. Good, that means you care. Sarah came in and closed the door. I just saw Madison. She looks confident, too confident. She thinks she's already won. Probably, but Emma, I need you to know something. Whatever happens tonight, you've already won. You've shown everyone that you belong here, that you're not going to be pushed around or made small. That's a victory even if the performance doesn't go perfectly. It has to go perfectly. No, it has to go honestly. There's a difference. Sarah hugged her quickly. We're all rooting for you, every single one of us. Now go out there and show them what real talent looks like. The concert started at 7:30. Emma was scheduled last, the final performance of the night. She sat backstage and listened to the other students. A violin concerto, a piano sonata, a string quartet, all of them good, technically proficient, emotionally safe. Then Madison performed. She'd chosen Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, the first movement, difficult, dramatic, beloved by audiences everywhere. Emma listened from the wings and had to admit Madison was good, really good. Her technique was flawless, her interpretation sophisticated. The audience applauded enthusiastically when she finished. Madison walked off stage and deliberately made eye contact with Emma. The message was clear. Beat that, Director Morrison stepped out to introduce Emma. Our final performance tonight is an original composition by sophomore student Emma Martinez. This piece, titled Unbreakable, is Emma's first major work. Please welcome her to the stage. The applause was polite, scattered, nothing like what Madison had received. Emma walked out into the lights. The Steinway Grand waited for her, black and perfect and terrifying. She sat down, adjusted the bench, and looked out at the audience. 300 faces, most of them strangers, some of them friends. In the back row, Victor and his brothers, all of them standing even though everyone else was seated, all of them believing in her. Emma placed her hands on the keys. The first chord exploded into the auditorium like thunder. No gentle opening, no easing the audience in. Just raw power and emotion from the very first note. The music poured out of her, everything she'd felt for the last 2 months. The anger at being underestimated, the hurt of constant judgment, the fierce determination to prove everyone wrong. She played it all, holding nothing back. The audience went completely still. This wasn't background music. This wasn't pleasant entertainment. This was someone's life laid bare, transformed into sound. Emma's fingers flew across the keys, navigating passages she'd written specifically to push herself to the absolute limit. Octave leaps that shouldn't have been possible at her speed. Polyrhythms that required total concentration. Melodies that wove through multiple registers simultaneously. She made it through the angry section without a single mistake. Hit the bridge where everything fell apart, where the music seemed to collapse in on itself, and she played those moments of doubt and fear with brutal honesty. Then came the resolution, the part Victor had helped her write, the hope. The music transformed. Same themes, same melodies, but different now. Triumphant, joyful, unbreakable. Emma played the final crescendo with every ounce of strength she had left. The notes rang through the auditorium like church bells, like truth, like victory. The final chords sustained, fading slowly into silence. Emma lifted her hands from the keys. Nobody moved. The silence stretched for 1 second. 2, 5. Emma's heart sank. She'd miscalculated. They hated it. They thought it was too much, too raw, too. Victor started the applause. Then Snake, then Razor, then Tommy and the rest of his brothers. Then Jason stood up clapping. Then Marcus. Then Sarah and her whole group. Then someone in the middle section rose. Then an entire row. Then half the auditorium was on its feet and applauding like their lives depended on it. Emma stood slowly, stunned, as the ovation built and built. People were shouting, crying. The sound was deafening. Mrs. Ashford rushed onto the stage, tears streaming down her face, and pulled Emma into a fierce hug. That was extraordinary, she said into Emma's ear. That was the most honest, powerful thing I've heard in 30 years of teaching. I'm so proud of you. Director Morrison appeared, also applauding. Miss Martinez, I believe we need to discuss your future at Monroe. That kind of talent deserves significant support. The audience finally began to settle. Emma looked out at them, overwhelmed, and found Victor's face in the back row. He was crying openly, not bothering to hide it, just smiling at her with absolute pride. She mouthed, "I love you." He mouthed it back. As Emma walked off stage, Madison was waiting in the wings. Her face was pale, her expression shattered. Madison started, then stopped. "You're better than me. You're so much better than me." Emma looked at her, not with anger, not with triumph, just with understanding. "I know," Emma said simply and walked past. The reception after the concert was overwhelming. Parents she'd never met wanted to talk to her. Students who'd ignored her for months suddenly knew her name. Even Madison's mother approached, though she looked like she'd swallowed something sour. "That was quite a performance, Miss Martinez," Mrs. Prescott said stiffly. "Very emotional." "Thank you. I suppose we'll need to reconsider some of our scholarship criteria. Raw talent is valuable, but discipline and proper training are equally important." "With respect, ma'am," Emma said. "I had both, just not from the sources you expected." Mrs. Prescott's expression froze. Then surprisingly, she nodded. "Point taken. Good evening, Miss Martinez." Victor finally made it through the crowd to Emma's side. "Ready to get out of here?" he asked. "More than ready." They walked out together, Victor's arm around her shoulders. Behind them, Emma could hear the continued buzz of conversation. Her name over and over. But she didn't care about any of that anymore. She'd done what she set out to do, proven herself on her own terms. Let the music speak for itself. Outside, the night air was cold and clear. Stars were visible despite the city lights. "You proud of yourself?" Victor asked. "Yeah, I really am." "Good, because I'm proud enough for both of us." Victor squeezed her shoulder. "You know what tonight was? That was you taking everything they threw at you and turning it into art, into truth. That's power, Emma, real power, not the kind that comes from money or connections, the kind that comes from here." He tapped her chest. "And nobody can ever take that away from you." The Hells Angels were waiting by their bikes. When Emma and Victor approached, they all started clapping again. "Speech," Tommy called out. "No speech," Emma laughed. "I'm done performing for tonight." "Fair enough. Pizza instead." "Pizza sounds perfect." They went to the same places after the first recital. Same red vinyl booths, same checkered floors, same Brenda bringing them extra-large sundaes for dessert. But everything was different. Emma wasn't fighting anymore, wasn't trying to prove anything. She'd already proven everything that mattered. As she sat surrounded by the people who believed in her from the beginning, eating pizza and laughing at Tommy's terrible jokes, Emma realized something. She'd been so focused on winning, on beating Madison, on showing Monroe Academy, that she belonged. But she'd belonged all along, not at Monroe necessarily, but in this moment, with these people, doing what she loved. That was victory, real victory. "You're smiling," Victor observed. "What are you thinking about?" "That I don't need Monroe to validate me anymore. I validated myself tonight. Best lesson you could have learned." Victor raised his beer. "To Emma, who's unbreakable in every way that matters." Everyone clinked their glasses together, echoing the toast. Emma sat back and let the love and acceptance wash over her. She'd walked into Monroe Academy 6 months ago as the scholarship kid nobody wanted. She'd walked out tonight as herself, fully, completely, unapologetically. And that she realized was all she'd ever needed to be.